Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
The only way to describe it is to call it a mini lake or a lagoon.
Frozen or bursting. BC's cold snap is wreaking havoc on pipes and plumbing in a nonprofit and a hospital. Plus,
I don't like it, but people need to live somewhere.
I think Canada in itself is short of housing, in BC particularly, and Oak Bay should do its part.
as the province orders more cities and towns to build more housing, one Vancouver Island community says it doesn't know how it will make its quota. And
we need to have a reset at the ministry.
The Premier brings in a new Minister for Children and Family Development after calls for her to resign.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. BC's cold snap has been wreaking havoc on pipes and plumbing systems across Metro Vancouver. Many homes and businesses are reporting frozen or burst pipes. Joel Ballard visited a local nonprofit forced to close because of flooding.
Early Saturday morning, disaster struck at the Down Syndrome Resource Foundation in Burnaby.
The only way to describe it is to call it a mini lake or a lagoon.
A pipe in the heating system froze and burst, spilling water into the walls and flooding the second floor.
It means for at least this week, all of our programs and services have to be done virtually.
Leslie says the center has closed indefinitely, with reopening estimates anywhere between a few weeks and 6 months.
That is a very serious problem, because then you're talking about delays in development that could have a much more long-lasting impact in a negative way.
And much of the group programming, like Taekwondo, has also been cancelled. Those who attend the center and those who work there worried about missing out on opportunities for socializing.
As I miss all friends and staff there.
Both Jason and his mother worry the isolation could lead to loneliness. Right across the Lower Mainland, the cold snap created challenges. It was a busy weekend for the Vancouver Fire Department, too. Since Friday, it responded to 915 calls. The cold to blame for much of that.
Our crews across the city have responding to the cold weather, specifically around any type of pipes, water sources, sprinkler systems, domestic water supply, for numerous false alarms for fire alarms that bring set off by this.
And in Mission, the emergency department at the local hospital remains closed after a burst pipe led to severe flooding Saturday night.
It was just a cascading wall of water coming down from the wall and ceiling.
Patients had to be diverted to nearby hospitals. Theron says staff are still assessing the damage, and the department, which normally sees up to 100 patients a day, will likely be closed for weeks.
We expect there will be some impact to the surrounding hospitals. We're keeping close tabs on what's happening as patients obviously have to seek care in other locations right now to try and minimize impact to already very congested healthcare system.
They've now had to...
Back at the center, Leslie says the foundation is covered through insurance, but it could face a deductible of up to $25,000.
For instance, $25,000 that we would otherwise put into programs and services that we now have to redirect.
A hefty price tag for the not-for-profit. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Burnaby.
Darius Madavi joins us for a first look at the weather. How long does this cold stick around, Darius?
Quite a while. Now here on the coast, we are the luckiest across Canada. We are the first ones that'll see our temperatures come back up above freezing. Some parts of the island have already seen that today. I think Vancouver did get up to 0, maybe +1, so a little bit warmer than usual. But to give you an idea of just how strange this weather is, right now, or today, Vancouver reached a high of +1. That is warmer than, or colder than Iqaluit, which reached a high of +2. So even though we've been talking a lot about how all this Arctic air has made its way down south, that means that it's left the Arctic, and so they're getting all of our warm air. And I don't think I just speak for myself when I say that territories can have their Arctic air back. We're good with our warmer Vancouver air. Now, we do have plenty of warnings still in place. Inland parts of the coast still seeing that Arctic outflow warning. Snowfall warnings now throughout the northwest and central parts of the province. Special weather statement for much of southern BC, including here in Vancouver and on the island, because of this potential for a very messy commute late Tuesday, probably around 10 to 11 p.m. into Wednesday. And then we have those extreme cold mornings in parts of the prairies as well. Now, even though I was able to switch back to our normal legend. You can see that the temperatures have shifted again. Now the temperatures have started to come back up. We're staying chilly for a while yet, particularly in the north, where we might actually see another outbreak of Arctic air. And if we take a look at what's going to happen across the province, we can watch that system roll down, meet another system here in Vancouver. So we've got a pretty messy one ahead. And in fact, if we take a look at our local mountains and here in Vancouver, there is quite a potential for late Tuesday, really late Tuesday, so not really going to affect the commute Tuesday, but Wednesday morning could be messy. A lot of snow possible and freezing rain as well.
Okay, Darius, thanks very much. We'll check in later.
Thank you.
The BC government will soon release 5-year targets for a second list of communities it considers to be critically short of housing. The first 10 cities and towns mandated to build homes were announced in September. As Belpuri reports, 4 months into the process, some still have no idea how they'll complete their order.
Extensive coastline, long history, a proud sense of belonging. Oak Bay is among BC's most desirable communities.
Very walkable, very recyclable, a very attractive place for people to live.
If there were places for them to live. 96% of Oak Bay's tax base is residential. Most of its land is zoned single family.
If you want to build a multifamily where there isn't, you have to go around and buy, say, 4 individual single-family lots just to put up a relatively small apartment building. Those lots in Oak Bay are expensive.
Multifamily building is rare in Oak Bay.
The approvals process can be very, very drawn out. You can imagine how that adds to the final cost and simply drives up housing prices while failing to adequately expand supply.
A new 3-story mixed-use complex will add 6 rental units to the market. It's been 7 years since these 43 high-end condos got the go-ahead, and just this fall, a 15-unit building was approved after it was first proposed 10 years ago.
Some factors that could be involved with the developer side is just the faster processing of the applications. I know my colleagues who have tried have basically turned away. It's a difficult path, or has been in the past. So if you're faced with a 10-year process versus a 3-year process, you are going to go to another municipality.
That could be about to change. Oak Bay was recently put on the provincial government's list of communities in desperate need of more housing. As a result, it's been mandated to build 664 units over the next 5 years. The pushback was swift.
This is a significant rollback of democratic principles and powers, and I think it guts the ability of councils to shape the individual communities and to respond to local issues and to be accountable for those changes.
Before the NDP government stepped in, Oak Bay had planned to increase its housing by 640 units over 10 years. It was looking at an infill model of, for the most part, laneway homes and duplexes.
We shouldn't be doing things like building over people's backyards and destroying gardens that are habitats for birds and, that sort of thing.
Well, I don't like it, but people need to live somewhere.
I think Canada in itself is short of housing, in BC particularly, and Oak Bay should do its part.
To that end, Oak Bay says it's trying to get barriers out of the way.
I think it's going to be very difficult to make the target.
The NDP government has a plan for that too.
And as a province, we'll step in to be able to make the decisions that are necessary to do so.
While Oak Bay navigates BC's stormy housing crisis, the next wave of communities to be hit with mandated housing targets is expected within the month. Belpuri, CBC News, Oak Bay.
Premier David Eby has shuffled his cabinet, removing Mitzi Dean as Minister for Children and Family Development. Some First Nation leaders have been calling for Dean to step down after details of a foster child abuse case came to light last year. Eby claims his decision had nothing to do with that.
We need to have a reset at the ministry. And I'm very grateful to Mitzi for taking on the important work of childcare. This is an area that is so important to so many families across the province, that they have access to high-quality, affordable childcare.
Grace Lohr will take over in Children and Family Development, while Mitzi Dean is now Minister of State for Childcare. Andrew Mercier has been named Minister of State for Sustainable Forestry to support the Forests Minister. And MLA George Chow will take over as Parliamentary Secretary for International Credentials. When couples split up, it can lead to very tough conversations and even legal battles over who gets pets. Changes to family law around animal ownership and possession came into effect today. One legal expert says this change is important because the animal will no longer be considered just a possession. She tells CBC Radio's On the Coast the law is timely as experts see a rise in people who adopted pets during the depths of the pandemic who are now splitting up.
Calls to my office went up precipitously for pet custody because people are like, well, I want to keep my pet. I could care less about the spouse. I'm done with the spouse, but I need to keep my pet.
Factors the court will consider now include the individual's ability to care for the animal, relationships between children and animals, and any history of family violence. The new law will apply to all household pets, although experts say most cases tend to be cats and dogs. A police tactic used to collect DNA that ultimately led to the arrest of Ibrahim Ali in a high-profile murder case in Burnaby is being criticized. Ali, who came to Canada as a refugee from Syria, has now been convicted of first-degree murder. As Michelle Gassoub explains, civil liberty advocates say the tactic used sets a dangerous precedent.
We're learning more today about a sting operation during which police secretly collected the DNA of around 150 members of BC's Kurdish community as they tried to identify and find the suspect in a high-profile murder case involving a teenage girl in Burnaby. Today, the Canadian press reporting that police posed as a marketing team at a New Year's Eve event for the Kurdish community. They were giving out small cups of tea that were numbered. When those teacups were returned, the police officers collected them, they swabbed them, they gathered that DNA. Canadian press also reporting that $5 Tim Hortons gift cards were given out to people at the event so that they would provide their personal information, their names, their contact information. And it was eventually someone who drank the tea, whose DNA was provided through that cup, happened to be the cousin of Ibrahim Ali, who was eventually arrested and convicted in this case, and it was that DNA that led them straight to Ali. The BC Civil Liberties Association coming out very strongly against this tactic, saying they were stunned that this sets a very dangerous precedent and that informed consent was not provided by the people whose DNA was collected.
So in this case, when we see and learn about how our law enforcement agencies might have colored outside the lines and gone outside those very laws that they have been hired to enforce and protect on our behalf, it's really egregious and disappointing and disturbing.
Premier David Eby also commenting on this today, coming out in strong support of police tactics, saying this was a horrific crime and the perpetrator was brought to justice.
To be going back to say to the police who made our community safe again from this particular predator that they should not have done what they did, I really struggle with that analysis.
Ali was convicted in December of the first-degree murder of the teenage girl, whose name is protected under a publication ban. He did appear via video in court today to set a date for sentencing. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Surrey-based news publisher Black Press Limited has filed for creditor protection and is entering a sales agreement. Black Press publishes 150 daily and weekly newspapers, magazines, and websites, including the Surrey Now Leader and Abbotsford News. Today, its founder, David Black, announced he's retiring. Black Press has secured a tentative sale of the company with 3 investors. Its subsidiary, Black Press Media, plans to continue operating its local news publications within Canada. A wildlife protection agency in northern BC is having a record year for rescued bear cubs. Northern Lights Wildlife Society in Smithers is now caring for 114 cubs. Last year at this time, it had 70. The organization says wildfires and extreme droughts are 2 factors that threaten the animals' food sources, and this forces some of them into towns where they risk becoming a pest or worse.
Either they come into contact with humans, and lots of humans are not very sympathetic to their plight and just want them gone. And so a lot of bears have been shot as a result.
The Society wants cities and towns to be more proactive about limiting interactions between people and bears. They recommend bear-proof bins for garbage, recycling, and compost. And they ask people to pick fruit trees so ripening food is not within paw's reach. Well, after a few years of rather dismal seasons, the Vancouver Canucks are right now among the top teams in the NHL, and fans are ecstatic.
We're all ready to do it. I think I've never been more excited than when we made the playoffs. This city was electric. It was so much fun. So, let's get on board. Let's not let the bubble burst.
Business owners say merchandise is flying off the shelves as even bandwagon fans want to join in on the celebrations. Shocking.
A lot of people going to the games and they're buying their merchandise, especially the jerseys. And this year, Hughes is one of the best-selling jerseys we have, and a lot of people asking for that, especially for the Christmas.
The Canucks are set to face off against the Arizona Coyotes later this week. They did lose today 4-3 against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Back to our top story. Warming shelters across the province are opening their doors for vulnerable people as many struggle to keep warm in this deep freeze. Saurabh Sandhu got a close look at the work happening behind the scenes at a shelter in White Rock.
It's 10 to 7 on Sunday morning. Upkar Tatley is ready to roll the wheels of his shuttle to pick up those in need of shelter this chilly morning.
Minus 10 plus wind chill. So it's a little bit colder because the ocean's so close.
A group of people are waiting anxiously for Tatley. They hurry into the minibus to get some respite from the bone-chilling cold.
So if you're outside, you're going to feel it in your face a little bit more. So breathing that in, the cold air, a little bit of frozen moisture, it's going to hit you pretty hard.
Tatley heads the Engaged Communities Canada Society, which runs a daytime warming shelter in partnership with City of White Rock, a service that many are thankful for in this extreme cold weather. After a short ride, passengers hurry into the warming shelter to be greeted with some croissants and a warm cup of coffee.
A lot of them like things like extra sweet. I think maybe because it's just so cold out there, like the sugar just helps warm you up.
The shelter also provides clothing, blankets, and medical aid. Meanwhile, Tatley is headed back to the pickup spot, where more people are waiting for a lift.
We'll send the shuttle out just to find if there are people elsewhere that we perhaps didn't see. People are still sleeping in really difficult situations, so we're always trying to find out where they are.
I would have been very, severely taxed to my limits just to try and survive, much less try and stay warm.
And among the visitors are some with extra needs. But Tatley and his team try their best to leave no one behind.
We see all sorts of people who come through our site. We see seniors, we see people discharged from hospital, we see people who are so quote-unquote rent-evicted. We also see a lot of folks who actually have really good jobs, but they just don't compare to the astronomical rents, costs of living, food.
The dark of night disappears as daylight breaks over the sky. However, the shuttle keeps moving, looking for others in need of a warm shelter and meal. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, White Rock.
A swell of support, meanwhile, has paved the way for a new winter shelter in the Kootenays. It all happened in just a few weeks. And as Corey Bullock shows us, the Creston community moved quickly to make sure no one is left out in the cold.
Then I'll back this way.
For Dennis LaRose, opening an overnight shelter this winter was a no-brainer.
I believe in a world where everybody has access to good food, housing, and the ability to raise yourself up when you're down like that.
An emergency shelter is now open in Creston after members of the Trinity United Church noticed an increase in unhoused people at their doorstep. In a matter of weeks, the group has provided a warm shelter where there wasn't before.
So by December 31st, we raised $30,000. The town offered us this part of their building. It just has moved so fast. Every time we had a need, it would just fall. Yes, here it is. And it's been heartwarming.
The space has been dubbed the Den. It's equipped with beds, animal crates, showers, and a kitchen. And it's the first of its kind in Creston.
It's not unusual that they would be doing this. So I think that we're proud of our community and how much people work to help others here.
There are no official numbers on homelessness in Creston, but Mayor DeBoon says there's at least 6 people living on the streets, while dozens of others are living rough.
We know of so many people living in their vehicles and in campers without heat.
When I think about if I had sat outside last night what would I look like this morning?
The church has also opened its doors during the day this weekend as temperatures in Creston dip below -30.
The shelter that we set up for overnight is in very close proximity to the United Church. So having that area sort of as a center for assisting our unhoused people makes a lot of sense.
And although the overnight shelter is only open until the end of March, the group hopes to continue caring for those in need. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Creston.
As more and more children and young teens turn to Sephora for trendy skincare products and makeup, dermatologists are getting concerned why some products are intentionally marketed to adults only. After the break. Hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. Thanks for being here. In Saskatchewan, a football team visiting from California for a tournament got a nasty shock when they were greeted with -40-degree temperatures. The Yarra Centre in Moose Jaw hosted 20 teams, including 2 from the U.S., for the 3rd annual Battle of the Prairies. Despite that frigid Canadian winter, the team says they still managed to have a good time.
Never. Not cold like this, at least. When we went to Texas, I thought 30 degrees was cold, but when we came here, it was a whole different story.
Zelko Stefanovic. I'm the executive director. Saskatchewan Select is a development program that we started in 2011. We have 7 different age levels that we train with over here, and then every winter, we go to a tournament somewhere in the U.S. So this winter, this February, we're going to be going to Orlando. Yeah.
And now you've created your own tournament.
Now we've created our own tournament. So we said, hey, let's have a little tune-up thing here, and something that was started off as little is now the thing behind me, man. Like the big screen and announcers and music pumping, and the vibe in here is crazy.
My name is Damian Mahoney. I am the head coach of the Mambas. We are from Southern California. We are called the IE Mambas. We're from like Riverside, Marina Valley, Palm Springs. We have kids actually that come from all over the area of the Inland Empire of Southern California. We actually stopped by Walmart. We had to stop by Walmart. The bus dropped us off, and kids were getting gloves, getting the rest of the stuff we had. We live close to Big Bear, so we're used to the cold, -20, but not like the negatives. Not like the negatives.
My name is Darian Mahoney. I'm number 2, and I'm on the IE Mambas from California. It's a lot different. I know all the foods and stuff are very different, but they're super good, and the people are different. I was just asking around because like different things in California, like Chick-fil-A, you guys don't have that here, don't you? In California, or like United States, we call it High C. You guys call it Fruitopia. That was super good. I like Fruitopia more than High C though. We went to a spa so far, outdoor spa. That was super cool. It was just cold, and I was worried that we're gonna have to walk outside in the snow to get in, but we didn't. It was just a pool to get in.
Jeffrey Simmons, D tackle, IE Mambas. Everyone's kinder here.
Really?
Yeah.
How about the food?
Awesome. Love it so far. It's the same for us, similar because it's moist in the air, like it feels wetter. But in terms of temperature, no, it knocks the hell, no.
If you or someone you know shops at Sephora, perhaps you've noticed some of their customers skewing a bit younger. Adults are now taking to TikTok to voice concerns and annoyance over the demographic they've dubbed Sephora kids. Children as young as 9 or 10 who take the store by storm, demanding products from brands like Drunk Elephant and Glow Recipe.
Hi girls, welcome to Sephora.
Lady, you got Drunk Elephant or not?
Oh, it's over there.
Oh my gosh, Izzy, I see it. Excuse me, which retinol product do you recommend? Aren't you like 9? FYI, I'm actually turning 10 tomorrow, so basically, where's your mother?
It's an inconvenience for some shoppers, while others are concerned that as kids consume more online content, including advertising, they're being influenced to buy products that are just not made for them. So we've called in an expert to tell us more about how young is too young for certain skincare products. Dr. Ashley Valley joins us now, a family doctor with a focus on dermatology at Rejuvenation Clinic. Thanks very much for coming in.
Of course.
First of all, what is good for adults, for example, at Sephora, and not good for kids? What do we need to watch out for?
So in general, kids have slightly thinner skin and slightly more sensitive skin, more permeable skin barrier that allows water to leave the skin more easily. They're more prone to irritation and dryness. And so I would tell kids to stick to options that are specifically marketed for sensitive skin or hypoallergenic skin. Things like retinols, AHAs, BHAs, glycolic acid peels, those are all very harsh and can be very drying and irritating for pediatric skin.
What are you hearing from people that come into your clinic? And I understand you do have you do treat some kids.
Yes, I do. Yeah, so in general, I find that kids are often prone to eczema when they're younger. Their skin tends to be very dry, and we require some boosting of the hydration to the skin. And then as we get a little older, there are a lot of changes with hormones and things, and so people can tend towards some acne-prone skin. That's where we start to introduce some medicated skincare products. But again, I would stay away from the over-the-counter options because they're mostly aimed at anti-aging, which isn't always appropriate for that adolescent type skin.
And shifting to adults who perhaps would be looking for those for the anti-aging creams. What about parents and guardians helping their kids separate what is healthy and what is not? What role should they play?
So I have noticed Sephora started marketing some of their products as being safe for children, which I think is a good place to start. I definitely think staying away from active ingredients, peptides, glycolic acid, retinols as a baseline, and sticking to things that are hypoallergenic, non-comedogenic, which means it's not going to block the pores and cause acne, is always a good starting point. I tend to like products that are marketed as hypoallergenic, like CeraVe, Cetaphil. I brought a few of my favorites in.
Sure. Why don't you just show us what would these do for whom?
Honestly, I would recommend for a kid that we would just start with a very gentle cleanser. I have this one by Cetaphil, which I really like, and CeraVe. Those two are really good. And then just a really good sunscreen, either a mineral sunscreen or a chemical sunscreen would be fine, depending on the concern. And then just ending with a moisturizer would be enough for any kid.
There we are. Dr. Ashley Valley, we appreciate your time and your expertise. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Hamas says Israel has killed hostages held in Gaza in its own airstrikes. Releasing video it says shows the deadly aftermath, while Israel is calling it psychological torture. That's next.
This is the Heidelberg cement plant in Edmonton. Heidelberg is one of the largest producers in the world, but what makes it unique is their mission to create carbon-free cement.
Carbon capture of this scale in a cement plant, this is a very new technology application, and it is a lot of learning.
So why is a cement plant investing in carbon capture? The Edmonton Heidelberg plant produces nearly 900,000 tons of carbon dioxide every year. That's roughly equivalent to the total emissions created by 200,000 cars. Most of Heidelberg's carbon dioxide comes from creating cement, a key ingredient in the formation of concrete.
Cement is the glue that holds everything together in the concrete. It's like the flour in bread. Without it, you just have a bunch of mud and some aggregates.
The only way to create cement is by burning limestone at increasingly high temperatures here in this kiln.
But when we heat this material up, not only do we release the emissions from the combustion of the natural gas or the alternative fuels as CO2, we also release the CO2 that's built up in the limestone.
And that's where the carbon capture process comes in. Here's how it works. Instead of going up the stack, carbon dioxide created by the limestone process will be diverted through a series of stages, including heat and cooling, absorbers and desorbers, to separate carbon dioxide from particulate matter and sulfur dioxide. In all, the system will capture 95% of carbon dioxide produced at the facility and compress it for storage.
We're going to send it into a pipeline at supercritical pressure all the way to the Wabamun hub, where it's going to be sequestered underground.
Before all that happens, though, Heidelberg is using this machine to track plant emissions. The data will be used to fine-tune the plans for the carbon capture system to come.
Because the capture CO2 from cement plant flue gas is never been done in commercial scale. Mainly, the objective is to prove the chemistry of the chemical that we'll use to capture the CO2.
Industry insiders say this green approach has to be the future of industrial production.
It's one piece of a whole big sweep to address greenhouse gas emissions across, yes, heavy industry, but also economy-wide and across the world. But there's no silver bullet for reducing emissions in any industry or in any sector or across the economy.
I have kids. I want to see a brighter, greener future for them. And this presented that opportunity to do a project at scale and help get the industry out there and help build this Alberta homegrown approach. It's exciting.
Heidelberg plans to have the full system up and running by 2026. Stephanie Cram, CBC News, Edmonton.
Israel is accusing Hamas of taunting families of Israeli hostages captured on October 7th. It follows the release of new video that claims to show Israeli hostages killed in Gaza. Margaret Evans has more on the video, the allegations, and the outrage.
Hamas released a video of the 3 Israeli hostages on Sunday, Noah Argamani, Yossi Sharabi, and Itai Svirsky, followed now by another video, purportedly showing the bodies of the 2 men. Argamani, who was filmed as she was taken hostage from a music festival in Israel on October 7th, appears under duress in the video, saying the men were killed by Israeli airstrikes. We can't verify that or where or when the video was taken. Israel has called it psychological torture. In Tel Aviv last fall, we met Yossi Sharabi's brother, Sharon. His other brother, Eli, also taken hostage. Their images kept close.
My family is broken, shattered. Now we are very worried.
That was then. Israeli officials believe there are still more than 100 hostages in Gaza. Some of their families are angry with the Israeli government for not pushing harder for negotiations. But Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, says the military can't let up now. If we stop the military pressure, he says, we will seal their fate to stay in Gaza because Hamas will not be motivated to talk to us. Inside Gaza, these images were released on social media Sunday, showing desperate Palestinians. The World Food Programme warning of hunger at crisis levels.
Everyone in Gaza is hungry. There are people starving in areas, and we are not able to give basic food for.
Yusuf Abu Ishaq says his family fled their house when it was bombed. We need food, bread, and blankets, he says. It's winter. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has repeated his calls for an immediate ceasefire.
Nothing can justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. The humanitarian situation in Gaza is beyond words. Nowhere and no one is safe.
Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says the number of Palestinians killed since the war began has now surpassed 24,000. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
Ottawa is opening a new immigration pathway for people caught in the conflict in Sudan. Those with family in Canada can start applying next month. This program is temporary, and as Ithel Musa shows us, some say that's a problem.
For Wada Madani in Halifax, the war in Sudan has changed everything.
It shattered my life, to say the least. It made everything impossible. I was not ever in my worst nightmare expected Sudan. to fall into that kind of violence.
Fighting erupted 9 months ago between Sudan's army and a paramilitary group known as the Rapid Support Forces. More than 7 million people were displaced within the country, and hundreds of thousands fled to neighboring African countries. Sudanese-Canadian Weda Madani is now trying to bring her brother and his family to Canada with the federal government's new immigration pathway for people caught in the conflict.
They would never, ever leave Sudan if it is not for this.
The temporary immigration program opens on February 27th and will close 1 year later or when about 3,200 applications have been received. But Weda says there should be no cutoff.
I think that the government of Canada can do better than that.
When the fighting began in the capital, Khartoum, many traveled to Sudan's second-largest city of Wad Madani. But last month, hundreds of thousands of people were forced to flee yet again when paramilitary forces seized control.
And Madani is the link and the hub for all humanitarian missions. And all humanitarian missions now, they suspended their operation in Jazeera state. And even some relief items and others were looted.
Sudan's army chief has vowed to continue fighting the Rapid Support Forces, despite it agreeing to a recent ceasefire proposed by civilian groups.
It's vital for any kind of workable ceasefire that the two major protagonists actually come to the table and agree.
As the conflict and humanitarian crisis in Sudan continues, Canada's new immigration pathway will be the only hope of some to escape the bloodshed. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
Some breaking political news out of the U.S. Midwest tonight. Donald Trump is projected to win the Iowa caucuses, the first major test in his race for the White House. The former president's victory tonight is a crucial step toward his bid to return to the White House. There's also a lot of suspense around who will come in second in the Republican race. Both Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis are hoping for strong showings in hopes they can eventually catch up with Trump. There is some good news in Iceland tonight, where it appears the lava flow is easing after a volcanic eruption over the weekend. As Mira Baines shows us, it's the second time in less than a month people have been forced to flee.
There's little people can do but watch as lava swallowed their homes. John Gotchi Dagbjertsen was one of about 4,000 people forced out Saturday, watching footage from afar.
This is big. This is serious. It's basically as bad as can possibly get, although it might get even worse.
His community was evacuated for the third time after a series of earthquakes cracked open the Earth's crust, creating fissures between the town and a small mountain to the north. Over the weekend, fountains of molten rock and lava spewed from a nearby volcano, spilling into the community.
Yeah, I think people are in shock.
Alla Haldort's daughter lives 30 kilometers south of Grindavik.
They're really hurting. It's difficult to see their own homes. You know, they're watching it in the news. Their house is going in flames.
Iceland's prime minister explained earlier efforts to use barriers to redirect the flow of lava were helping until the new fissure opened up.
Already, several houses have gone under lava, so it's a very serious situation.
The lava flow is decreasing, but experts warn activity remains unpredictable.
This fissure opened up, under the berm that they built to try to divert the lava, and it popped up and flowed out and destroyed these buildings.
Dagbjertsen hopes to get back to the home he was born in, but is prepared for the worst.
It's a tough thought to think that this town might be over, and I would have to start all over somewhere else. But if that's the case, then that's exactly what we'll do.
Volcanic eruptions in Iceland are not rare, happening about every 5 years. Until 3 years ago, this volcanic system near Grindavik had been dormant for 800 years. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Here's a place where you probably won't be asked to tip. Your neighborhood thrift shop. But business is booming as more people embrace thrifting as a trendy way to dress sharp and save some money. Taryn Grant checked out one sale where clothes were going for prices by the pound.
Hundreds of shoppers flocked to this secondhand clothing sale, hoping to find new items for their wardrobes.
Really nice for the environment to be able to have used goods available, you know, especially for the price that it is with like by the pound. It's such an innovative way and I really like that.
Yeah, so drop it in and spin the wheel.
The price of everything was $6 a pound.
I'm going to call it 4.1 because you have a bag in there. And so that is $24.56.
Organizer Charlotte Genge has been putting on clothing swaps and sales for over a decade. She's noticed a big shift in the past couple years.
I've seen that thrift has just become, it's exploded. And I'm sure it's being talked about a lot. It's something you hear a lot because there are a lot more players entering now. Like, you know, there's online kind of thrift and consignment, and there's a lot more people participating in it, which is great to see. It's become more streamlined, more, what's the word I'm looking for? Just mainstream.
This is a side hustle for Genge. But Sarah Sorby has turned clothing resale into a full-time job. Most of her sales are through Instagram, but she also has a few racks at a shop in Halifax's North End, along with several other resellers.
I truly believe that, you know, with secondhand clothing now, it's just as special, or if not more special, than going into a store and buying something. I think that it's really become something that's being embraced by everyone.
Sellers are hoping the used clothing market will only keep growing, with more people making secondhand their first choice. Taryn Grant, CBC News, Dartmouth.
I'll take the next person.
Ever gotten Fido ready for a walk? Open the door and have your dog look at you and say, nope. Maybe it's a husky just training to hit the snow. We're going to talk pets and cold weather coming up.
There's a myth about Sadako, and she was a Japanese girl near the end of World War II, and she suffered from radiation poisoning. There was this old Japanese myth where if you fold like 1,000 paper cranes, then you will be like healed like sooner and as fast as possible.
So she was like folding 1,000 paper cranes to like hopefully like get better one day. Unfortunately, she did not recover before she finished the project, but the myth says that like her friends finished it for her, so what we're doing here is kind of like a continuation of that story, just bring kind of like a little bit of hope and brightness to like a hospital room.
We made it rainbow just for the kids. We knew that it would be visually pleasing, but also it just makes them feel like they're in a safe environment. I was one of those kids, and just seeing something on the wall that's like really comforting really helps you.
We're a youth nonprofit, and our mission is to kind of empower youth, and we fundraise and use the money we've raised to buy presents and then donate it to the Alberta Children's Hospital every year before Lunar New Year. I used to be one of the Alberta Children's Hospital's patients. Every time I left the doctor's office, they would give me like small toys, like maybe a really small toy car, and I was always really happy when I got home and I would play with the toys. So yeah, I'm hoping to give back.
I've been like having this aspiration to donate this for a very long time now, so I just feel really excited and I feel really grateful that I have so many supporters here at Link CC to help me and we can just give back to the society.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs and fresh artists from across BC and beyond. Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
The deep freeze in BC is not budging, and with it comes a warning about protecting pets. While some breeds thrive in this type of weather, others need help coping with the cold. Janella Hamilton explains.
For some dogs like Bono, frolicking in the snow and cold is what they do best.
Australian Shepherds are generally double-coated, so they're pretty good when it comes to the cold.
She's a hardy little dog, and she just doesn't seem to need anything as long as she can play and run and chase her ball. Yeah, she's good.
But for short-haired breeds or older dogs like Winnie, a jacket or booties are vital.
I like to keep her in a fleece, otherwise after 20 minutes, half hour, she'll start to shiver. And she wears her boots to keep the snow out of her toe beams, Winnie.
Keeping pets warm and dry can be challenging for BC's unhoused population. The Union Gospel Mission says pet-friendly shelters and warming centers on the downtown east side are far and few between, leaving many to stay outdoors with their animals instead. So, how do you tell if your pet is comfortable in the cold? Experts say paying attention to their body language is key.
Dogs don't shiver normally, so it's a good indicator that they're cold. But the other one is if they seem to be sore in their feet. We've got two problems. One, the cold ground, but also we have ice and people spread salt, which will get into the paws and cause irritation.
He says that irritation may cause pets to nibble at their paws. Ingesting road salt or other chemicals used during the winter, such as antifreeze, can cause stomach issues and could even be fatal.
When you bring them home, clean their paws, and especially in between their toes and their underbelly. Frostbite may show up a couple of days later, and that could show up in discoloration of the skin, and it really affects the ears, the tips of the ears, the paws, and the tail.
And it's not just dogs who need extra protection from the winter elements. During extreme cold weather, cats will often seek warm places like under the hood of a parked car.
If you have feral cats in the neighborhood, put out a cardboard box, fill it with straw, not blankets if you can avoid it.
We're their voice and we need to protect them.
Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, it might be too cold outside for many Metro Vancouverites. A few braver souls strapped on their skates to take advantage of freshly frozen ponds, though it's not recommended.
I can't believe how fast it got frozen, right? I thought maybe Sunday, maybe there's a chance, but we come down here Saturday morning. There's no one here, picked up a little bit, but it's been beautiful. It's unbelievable. Rare for Vancouver.
I moved to Vancouver in 2005, and there was nothing like this until 2016. And then since then, it's becoming more and more frequent, which is awesome. Monday will probably be the last day. And today the ice was like glass, like a winter dream come true for sure.
The ice seemed great, and it's been essentially a lake for a month now. It looked frozen. Very thick, and it was great. So I was out there and just took it all in that rare outdoor pond moment, which we just don't get in Vancouver. If you can feel the ice getting soft on your blades, like that's a really good sign that it's probably not the best idea. Be cautious, because we know unless you're sitting there measuring it, you have no idea how thick it is or how long it's been thawing in the sun. Let the municipalities kind of go in and tell you if it's safe or not, because they're going to know properly.
Good advice. Darius Madavi joins us now. Worth noting, the Vancouver Park Board is now telling people to stay off the ice despite the extremely cold weather. They say there are risks involved. Is that ice going to stick around, Darius?
Not too much longer. It seems temperatures are finally starting to creep up above the negatives, starting probably into tomorrow. We did hit a high just barely above freezing, but not sure that'll be enough to really make a difference. So as we head into mid and end of the week, we're going to see temperatures that are getting closer to seasonal. Now, this is a different baseline than we usually look at. Environment Canada uses. This is 1979-2000, but I still think it's worth a look. From one of my favorite websites, highly recommend Climate Reanalyzer. And you can see how cold it is right here in Western Canada and stretching down to the southern U.S. right now. And you can see the difference there compared to parts of the Arctic, like Nunavut. You can see that they're getting really our warm air, and they are much, much, much warmer than usual. Meanwhile, here we are much, much colder than usual. And it's because of that air mass that has moved south. We'll see how long it takes to restore back to normal. Over the next 3 days, we're going to see today through Wednesday, still a continuation of those really low temperatures, but starting to get it back up to normal here on the coast. Meanwhile, the rest of the eastern Canada still stays low, but as that air mass continues to move further east, they'll have a turn with that really cold weather. Now, in terms of current temperatures, you can see across Western Canada still very cold, but this isn't going to be the story for much longer, besides in northern BC, where temperatures will stay low for a bit longer. Instead, it's going to be our precipitation. So right now, you can't see too much. I have added this little map that I'm still trying to make it look a little bit nicer. But this is where we have radar coverage across BC. This is from an Alaskan radar that we're picking up here. So this system is actually coming into northern BC. So we are starting to see some snowfall already in parts of northern BC, in the northwest in particular. But you can see plenty more precipitation still to come. We looked at this map sooner. Let's get a closer look here on the south coast, because we know there's going to be some heavy snowfall because of those snowfall warnings in parts of the interior, central interior in particular. But you can see really starts late Tuesday for the South Island, continues to move up to the east coast of the island, and then reaches us here in Vancouver late on Tuesday into very early morning Wednesday. We see a bit of snow, then we get this sort of mix of snow and rain, and it's going to be freezing rain. So even if we do get rain instead of snow, not really the reprieve that we're hoping for. Now, in terms of accumulation, still lots to come across central BC in particular, but here in Vancouver, this is one of the nicer models. I decided to show one of the nicer ones, only 3 centimeters according to this one, a lot more in the valley and a lot more at higher elevations. But again, this could be a lot more depending on how exactly that air mass shakes out. Now, in terms of our conditions tomorrow, we can already see that snow coming across northern and central BC, but a little bit better here in the south. Not really starting to see that snow yet until Wednesday, and here in Vancouver as well. And then here's our forecast for the next few days. Snow starts overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, then it turns to rain and freezing rain, and still some sleet, and then we get just rain for the rest of the week. So
okay,
another busy one ahead, Dan.
No kidding. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
When the movie you're watching isn't exactly as advertised, why did the lead character just break into song? The mystery behind surprise musicals, up next.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
Movie musicals are making a big splash at the box office lately.
But they're marketing themselves a bit differently these days. They're not promoting that they are, in fact, musicals.
Magda Gabrisalasa explains why they're hiding the tunes.
We have a new student.
What's up, Katie? The cliques, the fashion, the famous one-liners.
You could be really hot if you change, everything.
Mean Girls is back with new faces hitting new notes. The original Tina Fey, Lindsay Lohan movie came out 20 years ago. Then it hit Broadway as a musical, and now it's a musical on the big screen too.
I love musicals.
Australian Angourie Rice takes on the role of Katie Heron.
I know that this is going to be something really special.
But the trailer doesn't give away that it's a musical, something we're seeing more of.
Mr. Wonka, I can see you're a man of great ingenuity.
The holiday box office winner, Willy Wonka, wasn't loud about marketing itself as a musical either. Then you've got the musical remake of The Color Purple. Even last year's blockbuster Barbie got bit by the musical bug. It seems musicals are back, but with a marketing twist, says this culture writer.
It seems like the film industry has started this trend of not making them known as musicals.
A call likely driven by box office results. This film analyst says musicals just didn't do as well in the last few years.
Right after the pandemic, some of the more serious musicals like West Side Story, Dear Evan Hansen, In the Heights underperformed relative to expectations at the box office.
Still, this critic thinks not marketing the movies as musicals is short-sighted.
Often the movies that are standing the test of time are movie musicals, right? It's, The Sound of Music and Grease and Singing in the Rain, all of these movies that we're still talking about however many decades later, and they didn't have to hide that they were musicals.
Marketing aside, more musicals are on the way. Wicked Part 1 is heading to theaters this year, and the musical sequel to The Joker has Lady Gaga set to sing on screen again. Magda Gabrisalasa, CBC News, Toronto.
There you are.
It's really interesting. 'Cause I saw Barbie, and I didn't think of it as a musical.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a favorite movie musical?
This is Spinal Tap. Goes up to 11. There we are.
Oh,
it's a good one. Classic. Vancouver art students are learning about graffiti from one of the city's masters.
Street artist Smokey D will be teaching the class after working for years to make graffiti more accepted in the city. Check it out.
My name is Jamie Hardy, and our Smokey Devil. I had my own graffiti class at Carnegie last year, and this young man came in there a few times, and he ended up being a 10-year professor at Emily Carr. And then all of a sudden he approached me one time about this street art course, and I was like, wow, I'm really honored because he's let me be a big part of it, which is good, right? When I first started, there was very few people doing it, right? And it was very, very illegal back then. The police didn't like it, or people didn't really like it because they didn't understand it, right? And nowadays it's more mainstream type of thing, right? And yeah, the class itself is the first of its kind in Canada, which is groundbreaking, right? So it's cool. I want to put Vancouver on the map with that. I just want to put Vancouver on the map, and I just want to say what's up to all the people in my class and to the professor, and thank you very much to Emily Carr for letting me attend there. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
And we will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. See you then.